I don't want your last name. My lover thinks it's weak. She said it the way you'd comment on stale bread, casual. I think she even swirled her wine after, like it needed decanting before the insult could fully breathe. I didn't look up from the steak I'd just finished cutting, medium rare, rosemary butter, only thing warm left in the room. She went on like she was doing me a favor. It's nothing personal. It just sounds small, you know? Like a regional insurance firm or something. Dylan says it's not commanding. Dylan. That was the first time she said his name aloud. Not him, not a friend from tennis. Dylan, as if I was already supposed to know. And honestly, I did. The change in perfume 3 months ago, the sudden 8:30 p.m. Pilates classes, the way she started correcting my grammar in public again. It was all there. I stood up without a word, walked over to the drawer beneath the antique globe bar she never liked, and pulled out a single-page document I had printed 6 months ago. It had no legalese flourish, no padded margins, just a clean title at the top, voluntary name and estate disassociation waiver, and her name already typed out in the signature line. I slid it across the table like I was serving dessert. If you want to shed the name, I said, shed it completely. Sign here. She looked at it like it was a dare, like I'd blink. She didn't even read it, just laughed, an actual snort, and scribbled her signature with the Mont Blanc I bought her for her 40th. It was almost comical. That pen had more thought behind it than she gave the page she just signed. You're not even going to ask what it is? I asked, watching her tilt her wine glass again. It's a name, she said. Just a name. I want my own now. Well, over 97% of people hear stories like this without ever subscribing, but it's your support that helps us keep sharing them. If you're here and listening, you know, names carry weight, sometimes more than gold. She left the signed waiver on the placemat and padded barefoot down the hall, humming a song I used to like before she gave it meaning I'd rather forget. And I stood there, for a good while, looking at the paper, not because I doubted, but because the last link in the chain had just willingly snapped. You see, I built everything around that name, not for sentiment, but for strategy. It was the holding name for 3 LLCs. It owned the original shell company that bought out the mineral rights in Nevada before the boom. It was on the deed of our New England house, the one she called just a cabin, until the Zillow estimate broke 8 figures. It was wrapped into licensing agreements, trademark royalties, and an ugly little clause in a prenup she never finished reading because, quote, that's lawyer stuff. The name she just mocked, it was never just mine. It was the keystone. And now, by her own signature, it no longer had to be hers. When I finally sat back down, I moved her plate aside and opened my laptop. I already had the draft email ready. Subject line, waiver executed, proceed with asset retitling. I hit send. That night, she posted a mirror selfie on Instagram. New apartment, new wine glasses, caption, starting fresh, #independent woman. I stared at it for a while, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed what I already knew. She hadn't just traded out my name. She traded out everything she never took the time to understand. And in exactly 7 days, her lawyer was going to understand it very well. Back when we first moved into the house, before it was ours, back when it was just cute but outdated in her words, I remember asking her if she wanted to be involved in the remodel. Budget, permits, even paint colors. She waved me off with a kiss and a quick, "You're the spreadsheet guy, just tell me when it's done." That was our rhythm. I built, she appeared for the photos. I managed the mess, she picked the lighting for the dinner parties. It worked, in that sad, functional way that only looks stable from the outside. But somewhere along the way, while she was curating aesthetics, I started hiding the foundation in plain sight. It began small, 2 holding companies under my name, then a third wrapped in a Nevada trust. Everything routed through RD Holdings. She never once asked what RD stood for. She assumed it was another developer. She used to joke, "You've got your little alphabet soup business and I've got my yoga and wine club. Let's just stay in our lanes." Except my lane was the road she was standing on. Every time she clicked on the joint account, she thought we were just being frugal. She didn't realize that for 3 years, that account had become more of a decoy than a safety net. She didn't ask where the real money was going because asking would have required admitting she didn't know. The real money was in licensing fees, quiet monthly deposits from 3 regional firms who still used my patented estimation algorithm in their software. That little formula? I wrote it the same year her mother died, when she disappeared into grief, and I stayed up nights rewriting legal contracts in silence. It was filed under an IP shell with no traceable link to the family name, just RD Modular Design Inc. on the ledger. She mocked my label maker once, called it the saddest flex of middle-aged men. She had no idea those labeled folders were receipts, notarized signatures, contract exit clauses, non-compete firewalls. One of them literally read Voluntary Exit Strategy Wife. It sat under our bed for years. There was a time she threw a fit because she thought I forgot to enroll her in the hotel rewards program we always used. She accused me of being financially absent, said I lacked foresight. That same weekend, I was in Denver signing off the final documents that transferred primary control of our hospitality tech patents to a trust under my initials. It was either poetic or pathetic. I haven't decided which. And RD Holdings? She thought it was a contractor who installed our driveway. "Can you call that RD guy about the cracks near the garage?" she once asked, waving a champagne flute at me from the patio. I did call. My lawyer. I told him to proceed with the scheduled ownership transfers. She was right about one thing. I am the spreadsheet guy. I built fail-safes into fail-safes, timers, notifications, triggers based on a signature. And last Friday, when she signed that waiver in smug silence, the chain reaction started. One click. My bank's family accounts department received the form and revoked her access. Another click, and the cloud storage privileges synced to her email expired. Next Monday, when she checks for the photo albums or the old tax returns, nothing. She'll assume it's a glitch. It's not a glitch. It's a system. She used to say I was boring. Too cautious, not spontaneous enough. What she didn't realize was that caution is how men like me survive people like her. It's how we protect what we build, from storms, from fire, and from betrayal disguised as luxury candlelight. She always said she didn't care about the back end. Now she's going to find out, painfully, how much back end she never bothered to see. She married a name. She never asked what that name owned. That weekend, she packed her things like she was heading to a retreat, not ending a marriage. 4 suitcases, none of them zipped all the way. I watched her shove them into the back of a matte black BMW that didn't belong to her. The guy behind the wheel grinned like he'd just won a raffle he didn't enter. Aviators, chest hair, no handshake. She didn't even glance back as they pulled away. I didn't wave. By Sunday, the first photo hit her Instagram, a rooftop bar in Buckhead. She was holding a martini glass in one hand and tossing her new hair extensions in the other. Caption, "Reclaimed, renewed. No more legacy, only me." The word legacy was in quotes, subtle as a punch to the throat. I didn't comment. I didn't like. I just took a screenshot and saved it in a folder called Documentation Phase 2. On Monday, she updated her Facebook. Gone was my last name. Now it was just her maiden one, hyphenated with something brand new. Not legally changed, just aesthetic. Her lover, Dylan, of course it's Dylan, commented underneath with 3 fire emojis and the words, "Best decision you ever made." A few of her friends replied with heart emojis. One of mine, Dave, texted me, "Dylan looks like the kind of guy who spells entrepreneur wrong on his LinkedIn." But here's the part that made me pause. Not the name change, not the posts. It was the DM I caught a glimpse of. Someone had sent her a private message. "Wait, you actually signed away the name? Like, legally?" And then, like a mosquito landing on bare skin, doubt crept in. That night, Dylan, still high off his perceived alpha victory, poured them some overpriced whiskey and leaned back in his leather armchair like a Wall Street caricature. "Are you sure you're not entitled to half?" he asked, probably while brushing dog hair off his jeans. "You were married. You supported him. That name's got to be worth something." She laughed, loudly. "It was just a name," she said. "He gave me some waiver. I signed it and walked." Dylan raised an eyebrow. "You didn't read it?" She blinked, then smirked again. "It was a formality." But by morning, the smirk had thinned. She texted an old law school acquaintance, more a brunch buddy than a real friend. Just a quick line. "Hey, random Q, if someone signs a name release, how do you check what's in it? Like, what you're giving up? Asking for a friend, LOL." The reply came a few minutes later. "Why would anyone sign a name release? That's not standard divorce paperwork unless assets are involved. Did you mean prenup?" Her thumbs hovered. She typed, erased, typed again. Finally, "No, it wasn't a prenup, just a single page. I'll send a pic." She walked over to her new nightstand, painted white with fake marble veneer, and pulled the folded waiver from her purse, took a photo, sent it. The friend didn't reply right away. In the meantime, Dylan had a new idea. "We should look into whether you can get the vacation house. I mean, you stayed there more than him, right? That counts. There's also that family trust stuff. Can't be airtight. It never is." She nodded slowly, but the edges of her bravado were starting to fray. She opened up her browser and typed in a search. Can you undo a signed estate waiver? And there it was, that tiny, quiet moment where confidence starts to rot, where the loud new life, the rooftop drinks, the Instagram freedom anthem, suddenly feel like a very shiny distraction from a very large mistake. She thought she walked away clean, but now the question started tapping like a leaky faucet in the back of her mind. What exactly did I give up? And the thing about a faucet like that, it never drips once. Monday morning, 8:41 a.m. She was already seated when her lawyer, Patricia, walked in, heels sharp, coffee in hand, ponytail pulled so tight it looked like it hurt. Patricia didn't sit right away, just glanced at the paper her assistant had placed on her desk before she even arrived. One glance, then another, her brow folded like origami. Is this the document? She asked, tapping her manicured nail on the signature line. Yep, Rose replied, leaning back confidently. He gave it to me himself, said if I wanted to drop the name I should sign. Patricia's hand froze mid-page turn. You didn't read it? I skimmed it, she said, with the same flippant tone you'd use when explaining why you didn't sort the recycling. It was just about the name. No, Patricia said, voice going flat, eyes now glued to the third paragraph. It's not. This isn't a name change document. This is a release form. Legally binding. Rose's expression cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but it was enough. Patricia kept going, flipping with surgical precision. This clause here, see it? Voluntary relinquishment of all rights, claims, and associations tied to the registered name as it pertains to trust ownership, shared estate entitlements, and protected bylaws of affiliated business structures. Wait, what does that mean? Rose leaned forward now, just slightly. Patricia sat, finally. No laptop, just the paper. It means, she said slowly, you didn't just reject his name socially, you renounced it legally, and with it, every asset, protection, and claim tied to it. That includes the marital trust, the secondary LLC, the family holding company. Rose blinked. But we're married. Were, Patricia corrected softly. You just severed the binding point, and you did it with your own signature. For a second, all Rose could hear was the humming of the AC vent above. It had always annoyed her, too loud, never fixed. But now it sounded like a jet engine. She reached for her phone. Patricia didn't stop her. Rose called Thomas. Voicemail. She called again, straight to voicemail. Should we challenge it? She asked, words thin. Patricia looked up. I'll try, but you signed. It was witnessed. There's no ambiguity in the language. If anything, it's cleaner than most prenups, which, by the way, this overrides. Rose's hands trembled as she unlocked her cloud account. The folder marked Vacation Home. Refinance papers was gone. She tried the financial spreadsheet. Access revoked. Her old email auto-forwarding? Disabled. A buzz came in, her assistant from her old office. Hey, quick Q, are we still authorized to use the RD dashboard for the quarterly licensing numbers? Getting a denial notice? She didn't reply. She couldn't. Patricia finally said it. You do realize what you just signed away, right? Rose stood abruptly, gripping the edge of the chair. He tricked me. Patricia tilted her head. He offered you a document. You signed it. That's not a trick. That's a transaction. There was a long silence. Then Patricia leaned back in her chair and folded her hands. If I were him, I'd be silent too. Why fight when someone walks right into the trap smiling? Rose sat back down, slowly, her face pale, her breath shaky, the edges of her new life fraying like cheap lace. And for the first time since she walked out that Friday night, it occurred to her, she didn't leave the name. She gave it away, with a smile, with a flourish, and with no idea what she was actually holding. She didn't knock, just barged in, like she still had a key to the world she walked away from. The secretary had barely stood when the glass door slammed open and Rose strode through in 4-inch heels in fury. He didn't flinch. He just looked up from his coffee, black, no sugar, same as always, and calmly closed the document he was reviewing. Behind him, the skyline framed him like a portrait, clean-cut, tailored, silent. You tricked me, she hissed, planting both hands on his desk. That paper, you knew I wouldn't read it. Thomas didn't raise his voice. He simply reached to the side, pulled open the second drawer, and slid a manila folder across the polished walnut surface. It landed with a soft thud that somehow sounded louder than her accusation. Inside, printouts, an email she sent to a mutual friend. Thomas's name is so forgettable. Dylan says it sounds like something from a 90s cereal box. A photo from her Instagram, caption, No more dusty legacy. My name, my rules. A message to Dylan. I signed his stupid form. He looked so serious it was kind of pathetic. Her mouth opened, closed, reopened. No trick, he said finally, voice quiet but firm. Just documentation. She stepped back, but only slightly. You're not going to get away with this. You think this is clever? Manipulating paperwork? I'll take this to court. He smiled, just barely, then leaned back in his chair, clasped his hands together, and tilted his head like a man about to explain something for the last time. You're welcome to, but if you do, we'll have to open discovery. That means all correspondence, including your texts to Dylan, the ones where you called the company a retirement plan you'd squeeze dry, the one where you told him to just play along until I gave you the beach house. Do you remember those? She froze. Her eyes darted to the windows, the secretary outside, the black security camera in the corner of the ceiling. Thomas didn't move, just kept going, polite as if reciting a weather report. Discovery would also include your financial activity during the marriage, the little wire transfer you made to Dylan 2 weeks before the waiver, from a shared account labeled consulting. That one will raise some eyebrows. She opened her mouth to interrupt. He didn't let her. And while we're at it, he continued, voice cool as marble, we'd probably need to bring up that incident with the apartment lease in Miami, the one where you signed as Rose Delaney before the waiver was even processed. That's considered misrepresentation, isn't it? You're bluffing. He didn't blink. You know I'm not. Her arms slowly dropped to her sides. He picked up his coffee again. You thought this was a game, that if you could humiliate me, I'd crumble, maybe beg. But the thing is, Rose, I stopped being surprised by you a long time ago. I didn't retaliate. I didn't scream. I just documented. She stood there for a moment too long. The silence stretched. Not angry this time, just uncertain. Why didn't you just tell me? She whispered, barely above a breath. Why go through all this? He took another sip of coffee. Because you don't listen, he said. You perform. The words hit like a slap, not loud but precise. She backed away slowly, hand on the folder but not taking it. Her shoulders weren't squared anymore. Her voice, when it came, was brittle. You're going to regret this. He shrugged. You already do. Then turned back to his desk and reopened the file he'd been reviewing before she arrived. On the way out, she didn't slam the door. She didn't say another word. She just walked, heels softer now, echoing in a way that sounded more like retreat than rage. And in her absence, the folder remained, still open, still undeniable. Her pride had opened the door, but her own words had locked it behind her. By the time she got back to Dylan's loft, her face was red, not from shame, but from the kind of anger that comes when the game stops being fun. She kicked off her heels, threw her bag across the kitchen island, and poured herself a double. Dylan was still in bed, half-dressed, scrolling through his phone like a teenager avoiding homework. He looked up, smirked. So, did you put him in his place? She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed her laptop and opened the folder Thomas had slid across the desk. Her eyes flicked over the screenshots again, emails, posts, her own words now weaponized against her. Dylan leaned over her shoulder, reading. By the third image, he let out a low whistle. Damn, he really cataloged everything. She snapped the laptop shut. He's trying to paint me as manipulative, controlling, a gold digger. Dylan raised an eyebrow. I mean, you did kind of say the company was your retirement plan. She shot him a glare sharp enough to cut granite. So what? He's framing it, spinning it. I just need to spin it better. Dylan stood, shirtless, and walked to the fridge. Then fight dirty. She blinked. Excuse me? Come on, babe, he said, cracking open a cold brew like this was just another Tuesday. Leak something. Make it look like he's a control freak, that he's obsessed, possessive. Turn the whole silent genius act into toxic ex-husband vibes. People eat that crap up. She stared at him. You want me to fake a story? He shrugged. You want the house back, right? She hesitated, then slowly opened her phone, scrolled through old photos, old messages. She still had screenshots, one from 2 years ago where Thomas wrote, I track everything. It's just who I am. He meant it in a budgeting context, but out of context, she sent it to a blogger she used to wine and dine with, a gossip-style influencer who specialized in relationship empowerment and influencer feuds. Rose added a short message. Ex-husband is building a control narrative, wants to ruin my new life. Can you help share the other side? She waited. An hour passed. Then the reply came in. Hey Rose, this doesn't really fit my content style anymore. TBH, he's been totally silent on socials. No posts, no subs, no statements. Kinda looks like you left a good man for bad judgment. Sorry, but there's no story to tell. Her stomach dropped. She tried a second blogger, a third, a podcast host she'd been on before. Same replies. One even wrote back, "Your ex looks like he's focused, private, classy. You look like, well, you're fighting with a ghost. That's not good PR, babe." She tossed her phone across the couch, let it bounce off a velvet cushion and land face down. Dylan tried to console her with a grin and a lazy arm draped around her shoulder. "They'll come around, just takes a spark." But it didn't feel like sparks anymore. It felt like flailing. She opened her Instagram again. 172 likes on her latest New Beginnings post. But the comments were thinning. The people who used to double tap her brunch plates and beach yoga shots had gone quiet. No DMs, no congratulations, just the cold draft of disinterest. Even her mother hadn't called in a week. The image she'd tried to build, strong, reborn, independent, was starting to wobble under the weight of something she hadn't planned for, a man who didn't fight back, a man who simply let her talk, and then used her words as exhibits. Dylan nudged her again. "You okay?" She looked at him, at his apartment, rented, not owned, at his watch, impressive but leased, at his ambition, loud, empty, and always just around the corner, and for the first time since leaving Thomas, a strange chill settled in her chest. What if the story people were believing wasn't hers anymore? It started small, just a hiccup, something she could rationalize. Maybe the gate keypad at the lake house was glitching. Maybe Thomas forgot to update her code. She punched in her old access number again, slower this time, then tried her birthday. Nothing. The metal gate didn't move, just blinked red and beeped once, cold and final. She stood there, engine idling, waiting for some miracle. Or maybe just the sound of the gate motor kicking in. It never came. She checked the remote access app on her phone. Connection lost. She swore under her breath and called the housekeeper. No answer. The housekeeper probably had new instructions. She never had much loyalty, just a paycheck and a set of cleaning supplies. Annoyed now, she made a U-turn, tires scraping gravel, and headed back into town. Fine, she thought, I'll handle it later. But later turned into worse. The next glitch came that evening at the salon. Her card was declined, twice. The stylist smiled awkwardly and said, "It happens. Do you want to try another one?" Rose forced a laugh, reached into her bag for her backup. Declined. She stared at the POS screen as if sheer force of will could make the word approved appear. She stepped outside and immediately called the bank, pressed 0 through the automated prompts. Finally, a human. "Hi, yes, I'm trying to understand why my trust account card isn't working. It's the same one I've always used, tied to the family estate." A short pause. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Delaney." "Miss," she corrected sharply. "Right, Miss Delaney. According to our records, your rights to the RD Marital Trust were relinquished via a voluntary name and estate waiver, executed and notarized, effective immediately as of last Friday." Rose blinked. "What?" "We have the document here, signed by you. The trust is now under sole beneficiary control." "Sole? You mean Thomas?" "Yes, ma'am. The estate and its subsidiaries, including the travel fund and cloud storage line items, are now consolidated." "You're saying I don't have access to any of it?" Another pause. "Correct. We're legally bound by the waiver you executed. It's final." She hung up mid-sentence. The sky suddenly felt too wide, too open. She walked quickly back to the car, tried logging into the shared cloud archive, the one with their property tax records, her old modeling portfolio, even scanned photos from their early years. The loading bar hung for a moment, then disappeared. "Account does not exist or permission revoked." She stared at it for several long seconds, then tried logging into the shared smart home dashboard. Same result. Error. Denied. It was like the name she mocked had reached out and erased her, system by system, door by door. She opened her email and searched RD Holdings. Most of the shared threads were now inaccessible. The documents appeared blank, labeled "Access Removed by Administrator." The administrator was him. Her phone buzzed. A calendar reminder popped up. Property tax due, vacation home. She laughed, but it came out hollow. The kind of laugh people use to hold back the scream forming just beneath the surface. The home she once decorated with eucalyptus candles and faux bohemian wall art had kicked her out like a failed login attempt. Not a confrontation, not a fight, just revoked, quiet, precise, like everything he did. She called Dylan. No answer. She texted him. "Call me. Everything's locked down. Bank, cloud, house." 10 minutes later, he replied, "Can't talk. Drinks with clients. Chill. I'll help fix it later." Chill. Her palms were sweating. Her lipstick was smudged. Her name wasn't just changed, it was useless. And only now, finally, did she realize something horrifying. She hadn't just left a marriage. She'd been removed from a system she never took seriously until it spat her out. She waited until dusk to start dialing. There's something about evening light that makes people more forgiving, or so she hoped. The wine bottle was already half empty, a thin red ring staining the counter. Dylan was out again, networking. He always said it like it required dim lighting and women who laughed too loudly. Rose scrolled through her contacts, paused over Miriam Delaney, Thomas's sister, a woman who during the marriage had always smiled politely but never hugged. She had a way of seeing through things. Rose had once called it cold. Thomas called it accurate. She tapped the number. Miriam speaking. "Miriam, it's Rose." A pause. "Did something happen? I just need to talk. Can I come by?" "No." The silence that followed wasn't rude. It was definitive. Not a door slammed. A door that had never existed. Rose swallowed hard. "I don't think you understand what he's done. He's locked me out of everything. The house, the trust, the—" Miriam cut in. "You signed a waiver. He tricked me." "You mocked his name," Miriam said calmly. "For years. Said it was small. Said it held you back." Rose's grip on the phone tightened. "That's not fair. That was real. You married the name for protection. You wore it when it benefited you, and when it didn't, you peeled it off like a discount tag." She tried to breathe, to speak, but Miriam wasn't done. "You don't get to play the victim now. You made your choice. The rest of us are simply living with it." The line went dead. Next, she tried his mother, a woman who once knitted her a scarf that Rose never wore, then never asked about again. The voicemail picked up. She left a message, voice cracking at the end. "Please, I didn't mean for it to go this far." No callback. She reached out to Glenn, an old family friend, a man who once offered to officiate their wedding. He responded with a curt text. "Rose, don't. This isn't a mess you get to clean with nostalgia." Then came the colder shift. Her own circle. Samantha, who had once planned her baby shower and every birthday brunch since, now responded with, "This has become too messy. I think I need some space. Please respect that." Laura, who once co-signed a spa weekend, unmatched her on Venmo and removed her from the group chat. Even Janice, who hated Thomas, sent only one message. "You should have read the paper before you signed it. That's basic." Rose threw her phone across the bed. It bounced once, landed in silence. She sat in the dim glow of a lamp that wasn't hers, in a loft paid for by a man she didn't quite trust, wrapped in a robe she now realized had once belonged to Thomas, stolen in her rush to leave. The silence wasn't new, but the isolation was, because this wasn't just about property, or money, or pride. This was about a name she thought was ornamental, and had learned too late was infrastructural, a name she discarded like it meant nothing, and now no one would take her calls. And in the corner of the room, her laptop screen still displayed the calendar alert from her old joint account. Reminder, RD Holdings Q3 family meeting, RSVP closed. She stared at it until it faded, and for the first time in a long time, she had no idea who, if anyone, was still on her side. Patricia looked exhausted, the kind of tired that goes beyond lack of sleep, the kind carved deep into the face by clients who won't listen until it's too late. She sat across from Rose in the quiet corner of the law office, folder in hand, voice unusually gentle. "I've reached out," she said. Twice. First time, his counsel didn't even blink. Second time, they sent back a one-line response. Rose didn't speak. She hadn't spoken much since the outreach debacle. Even Dylan had noticed. His latest comment, "You've been moody since the trust thing," had earned him a door slam and an Uber to a friend's place. Patricia continued. "They said, and I quote, 'There is nothing to mediate. She signed the exit. She can keep the new name, the new man, and the debt she now owns." Rose blinked. "Debt?" Patricia nodded. "That apartment in Miami you signed for? The one under the joint family credit rating? It defaulted the week after your waiver went through. Guess whose name is still on it? Not his." Rose opened her mouth to protest, but there was nothing, not even denial, just static. Patricia handed her the page. Thomas's team had prepared one final offer, one gesture, cold in its precision. "As a closing courtesy, the following asset will be transferred to Miss Delaney solely, unencumbered and in her name. 1 2019 Lexus RX 350, license plate ending in 442, market value $23,100. No further compensation will follow. A car she hated, the one she used to call the Assistant Mobile. She'd once told Thomas to trade it in for something sexier. He hadn't. It runs, he said. It's safe. That's what matters. Now it was the last thing with her name on it. Patricia was already preparing the signature sheet. You should take it, she said softly. At least it clears your transportation. With the debt coming, you may need it. I'm not taking a damn car as a settlement. Patricia didn't react. She just closed the folder. Then don't. But this is what's left. Rose leaned back in the chair, arms crossed, legs shaking. She stared at the office art on the wall, abstract swirls of red and gold, something that once would have matched her accent pillows, something she used to care about. Everything we had, she said quietly. Everything we built. You didn't build it, Patricia said, not unkindly, just truthfully. You stood next to it. Rose turned toward the window, watched traffic flow below. A horn blared. A bird dove from a rooftop. Life moved. Without her, the emails had stopped coming. Her phone, quieter every day. Even Dylan had gone radio silent after the debt word was mentioned. He was good for champagne and compliments. But debt? That wasn't his scene. The man she thought was clinging to her had vanished. The man she mocked, still standing, unmoved, name intact, structure solid, not one public statement, not one petty jab, just a clean exit, and a waiver she signed in ink she didn't bother to let dry. Now, even Patricia looked ready to walk. You have 72 hours, she said, rising. Then the offer is rescinded. After that, you're on your own, completely. She left the folder on the table. Inside it, a single post-it, likely added by Thomas's counsel for emphasis. It read, "She let go. We're simply holding her to it." Rose didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at the words for a long, long time and finally understood. She wasn't losing anything anymore. She'd already lost it all. 1 year later, the room was smaller than the empire he'd quietly built, but warmer. The kind of space with cracked leather chairs, oak-paneled walls, and whiskey poured without asking what kind. An alumni event, invite only, quiet, intimate, no cameras, no press, no PR filters, just people who'd actually built things. Thomas stood near the back, nursing a glass of neat scotch, the same way he always had, one hand in his pocket, the other loosely around the glass. The banner above the stage read, Innovators of Legacy, featuring Thomas Delaney, founder, RD Holdings. The name, still there, undisturbed, unchallenged, unshared. They introduced him with an understated reverence, not flashy, but definitive. A quiet nod to a man who had turned modular design into a multi-tiered licensing machine, spun off 3 tech subsidiaries, and weathered a divorce scandal without ever issuing a single statement. He took the mic for a brief quanda. He never liked the spotlight. That hadn't changed. Someone asked, was it hard, letting go of all that personal history? The noise, the name, everything? Thomas smiled, not smugly, not bitterly, just settled. Not really, he said. She left the name. I kept the legacy. The room went still for a beat, then nodded, slowly, the kind of nod that says we know exactly what you mean. Afterward, a young man approached him near the hors d'oeuvres table, a fresh graduate, eager, wide-eyed. Mr. Delaney, sir, I read about your licensing model. Genius, really. But I also read that your ex-wife tried to sue for part of it. Thomas didn't bristle, didn't evade. She signed her exit, he said plainly. It wasn't spite, it was structure. The young man looked confused. You never responded in the press. I didn't need to, Thomas replied. A name is only weak if there's nothing behind it. He didn't stay long after that. He never did. He thanked the organizers, shook hands, left before dessert. On the way out, he passed a coat rack. A familiar scarf hung there, one he hadn't seen in years. His mother used to knit those. He smiled slightly, picked up his coat, walked into the night air. Alexis waited by the curb. His, of course, not the one she got. Hers had been towed a few months back. Unpaid tickets, maybe, or just the natural end of something taken for granted. He never followed up. He never needed to. Back at his home, he passed by a quiet room with a safe behind the bookshelf. Inside were the original documents, the waiver, the trust, the silent cornerstone of everything she thought was ornamental. He hadn't destroyed her. That would have required effort. She simply erased herself. With ink she didn't read. And now, when her name came up, and it rarely did, it was spoken like a footnote. like something once included in a draft of the story that had since been edited for clarity. He poured himself a drink, checked the time, and opened a fresh email from a new investor. Subject line, Legacy, we want in. He clicked reply, typed one line, let's talk.